Lena Hart stared out of the viewport as the Academy's massive gates came into view. The Interstellar Defense Academy was legendary across the galaxy, a place where the best and brightest from countless worlds trained to become elite pilots and warriors. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved across the sprawling campus, carrying students, instructors, and cargo. Lena felt a strange mix of awe and fear. She was human. She had trained hard, but humans were not known for strength or speed compared to many alien species here. Some of the beings she saw outside the ship could crush a human in a single-hand gesture. Her small bag rested on her lap. Inside were her personal belongings, a few notes she had prepared for her classes, and her old, battered training gloves. Her father had given them to her before she left Earth, telling her, "People will doubt you, Lena, but never doubt yourself." Humans have something no one else does: brains, heart, and guts. She had smiled at him then, not fully understanding what he meant, but now, seeing the other students disembark in towering exosuits and armored limbs, she began to understand. The moment Lena stepped off the transport, the Academy's environment hit her. Voices in dozens of languages filled the air. Scents from alien foods mixed with the sharp tang of metallic equipment. Students moved with confidence, their training visible in every gesture. Lena felt small, but she squared her shoulders. She was here to learn, to prove herself, and to survive. Her first steps toward the main building were interrupted by a tall, scaly figure with green skin and sharp ridges along his face. He towered over her, muscles bulging beneath his training uniform. His eyes, sharp and yellow, focused on her like a predator spotting prey. "You're the human girl," he said, his voice low and dripping with mockery. "I've been waiting to see how weak you are." Humans were underestimated, and she would use that to her advantage. She kept her gaze level and replied calmly, "I'm Lena Hart, and I'm here to train, not to fight you yet." Lena noticed a few students glance her way, some curious, some indifferent. No one stepped forward. The Academy's orientation started shortly after, inside a vast hall that stretched hundreds of meters, with floating holographic screens displaying the Academy's rules, history, and famous alumni. Instructors moved between students, observing and correcting posture, stance, and attention. Lena followed, taking in every detail. She made mental notes of exits, potential hiding spots, and the way the hall echoed. She had learned early in life that humans survive by noticing what others ignore. During the introductions, the instructors emphasized teamwork and discipline. Students were to train in mixed species groups, ensuring that every species learned to work with others. Lena noticed Raxer, the tall alien who had sneered at her, sitting across the room, arms crossed, eyes fixed on her. He seemed to enjoy the discomfort she felt, and Lena felt a spark of determination ignite inside her. She would not let him intimidate her. After the orientation, students were led to their first training session. The arena was immense, a circular platform suspended above a simulation chamber that could recreate different planetary environments. Gravity could be adjusted, terrains could change, and hazards could appear at any moment. Lena's first thought was of how dangerous it all looked, but she also saw opportunity. Humans were adaptable, able to adjust to unexpected situations faster than many species. Raxer was assigned as her sparring partner for the first drill. As the instructors outlined the exercise, a basic sparring scenario to test reflexes and combat strategy, Lena's heart pounded. Her muscles tensed, ready to move. She knew she could not match Raxer in strength, but she had speed, agility, and most importantly, her mind. The drill began. Raxer lunged forward, his claws swiping through the air. Lena barely ducked in time, rolling to the side. Her reflexes were sharp and her movements unpredictable. She observed his patterns. He relied on power, not finesse, and his attacks were straightforward. This was her advantage. Every strike Lena avoided was an opportunity to note weaknesses. She didn't attack aggressively, only enough to stay in control and maintain distance. Other students watched, impressed by her agility despite her small frame. Raxer's sneer remained, but frustration flickered in his eyes. This human girl was not as easy to crush as he had thought. The drill ended with Raxer slightly winded, Lena barely touched. An instructor nodded at her, a small sign of approval, but he made no comment. Lena knew that the adults here expected students to handle their conflicts. Humans often fought with more than just muscle. They used cunning and observation, and Lena intended to use both. After the drill, Lena found a quiet corner in the academy courtyard. She removed her gloves, wiped sweat from her brow, and reflected on what had happened. She could feel the tension in the air, the silent judgment of peers, and the looming presence of Raxer. Yet she also felt a sense of exhilaration. She had faced a creature much stronger than herself and survived without injury. That was a start. Weeks passed, and Lena settled into the academy's rhythm. Classes included combat simulations, tactical strategy, piloting exercises, and cultural studies of different species. Every day, she encountered challenges that tested her adaptability. Aliens who could leap hundreds of meters, species with natural armor or energy manipulation, and even humans who were stronger than her, all required her to think quickly and act decisively. Raxer continued his attempts to undermine her. He sabotaged her training equipment, spread small rumors about her being weak, and tried to bait her into fights during practice sessions. Some students laughed, some whispered warnings, and some simply avoided getting involved. Lena remained calm. She knew anger could cloud judgment. Instead, she focused on observing patterns. She noticed how Raxer moved, how he reacted to pressure, and how other students reacted to his behavior. One evening, during a group training exercise in low-gravity combat, Raxer cornered Lena again. He swung wildly, expecting her to panic. Instead, Lena used her speed to dodge and her understanding of the arena to trap him in a narrow passage. She didn't strike him. She didn't need to. Her ability to outthink him had already created an advantage. Nearby, an instructor finally stepped in. "Enough!" he shouted, rushing forward. But it was too late to prevent Raxer from striking Lena lightly across the shoulder, a move meant to intimidate rather than injure. Lena winced but stood her ground. She realized that the instructor's intervention, while necessary, came too late. The point had already been made. Humans were vulnerable, yes, but not defenseless. Afterward, Lena found herself both respected and underestimated. Some students began approaching her with curiosity, others with caution. Even Raxer's sneer seemed slightly forced, as if he was beginning to realize that humans were unpredictable. Lena knew she had to be careful. Every small victory, every observation, every step forward was part of a bigger plan. To survive, thrive, and show that humans could hold their own in this world of towering, strong, and sometimes dangerous beings. Lena spent her nights studying, practicing, and planning. She mapped out patterns of student behavior, recorded Raxer's tendencies, and experimented with new techniques in secret. She understood that humans could not compete in raw strength, but intelligence, creativity, and courage were her weapons. By turning disadvantages into advantages, she would make a name for herself, not through sheer force, but through mind, skill, and determination. Her first weeks at the academy ended with a sense of purpose. Lena knew the challenges ahead would be greater than anything she had faced. The bullying, the harsh instructors, and the competitive peers would test her in ways she could not yet imagine. But she also knew something that the other species often underestimated. Humans could endure, adapt, and innovate. As she lay on her bunk that night, staring at the dim lights above, Lena made a silent vow. She would survive this academy. She would rise above ridicule and danger. And when the time came, she would prove that humans were not weak, they were formidable. She closed her eyes, feeling the hum of the academy around her, a strange mix of fear, hope, and excitement. Tomorrow, the challenges would continue. Raxer would still be there, waiting. The other students would watch. And the instructors would judge. But Lena Hart was ready. She was human. And humans, she reminded herself, had a way of turning the impossible into the extraordinary. The next morning, the academy buzzed with activity as students moved through training drills, strategy sessions, and simulations. Lena adjusted her uniform and took a deep breath. Today, she reminded herself, she would face not only her challenges, but also the constant attention of Raxer, the scaly warrior who had already made her first weeks difficult. The first class was a tactical strategy exercise. Students were divided into mixed species teams and given a simulated battlefield scenario. Lena's team included a hulking alien with 4 arms, a sleek feline species with sharp reflexes, and a small robotic drone designed for reconnaissance. At first glance, Lena felt dwarfed by the physical abilities of her teammates and imagined they would overshadow her. But she knew that human strength was not always physical. The exercise began. The team had to capture a central objective while defending their own base. Raxer's team was also participating, naturally, and Lena could see him smirking across the virtual battlefield, clearly underestimating her abilities. He assumed that humans relied only on speed or courage. He did not see the planning, observation, or subtle cleverness that humans could bring to any challenge. Lena studied the map and her teammates carefully. She noticed how the 4-armed alien charged forward without thinking, how the feline species preferred quick but risky maneuvers, and how the drone often left gaps in reconnaissance. She made silent calculations, assigning roles and paths that minimized risk and maximized efficiency. The other students listened to her suggestions, at first skeptical, then slowly nodding as they realized her ideas were practical. The simulation started. Lena moved swiftly, coordinating with her teammates, anticipating obstacles and adapting as the virtual environment changed. When Raxor's team launched a surprise attack, Lena had already set up traps and fallback positions. She did not fight him directly. She used strategy and deception. By the end of the exercise, Lena's team had captured the objective while Raxor's team struggled to regroup. Several instructors watched closely, impressed by Lena's ability to lead and think ahead. Even Raxor's sneer faltered as he realized that this human girl had outmaneuvered him, not with raw strength but with intellect and precision. After the class, Raxor cornered her in the hallway. "Lucky move," he said, voice low, "but it won't save you next time." Lena met his eyes calmly. "Maybe," she replied, "or maybe humans just learn faster than you think." He growled and walked away, leaving Lena with a mix of relief and anticipation. She knew that the confrontations were far from over. The day continued with physical training in the combat arena. Lena paired with another human student, but she could see Raxor lurking nearby, watching her every move. The drills involved both hand-to-hand combat and weapon handling. Lena focused on defense and agility, learning to anticipate attacks rather than overpower them. She noticed that aliens often relied on predictable patterns, powerful but limited. If she could stay unpredictable, she would have the upper hand. During one sparring match, Raxor's friends attempted to corner her, hoping to humiliate her publicly. Lena, using a combination of quick movements, careful observation, and her knowledge of the arena's layout, escaped without injury and even managed to redirect their attacks against themselves in a harmless but clever way. Some students clapped quietly, impressed by her ingenuity. Others whispered, "The human isn't just lucky, she's smart." Her small dorm room was filled with the quiet hum of determination. She reflected on her progress and realized something important. Every challenge, every mock attack, every attempt to intimidate her was training in disguise. If she learned from it, she would become stronger, not in muscle, but in mind and spirit. The next day, the academy announced an unsanctioned sparring session in the arena. Students could practice freely, with instructors observing but not interfering unless safety rules were broken. Lena's heart raced. She knew this was a perfect opportunity for Raxor to try and assert dominance, but she also saw it as a chance to test her skills and demonstrate her growth. When Lena entered the arena, she found Raxor already there, surrounded by a few allies. His eyes immediately locked onto hers. "You're still here," he said with a sharp laugh. "Ready to fail again?" Lena took a deep breath, stepped onto the mat, and nodded calmly. She would face him on her own terms. The match began. Raxor charged, swinging with strength designed to overwhelm, but Lena moved quickly, dodging each strike. She observed his rhythm, noting that while powerful, his attacks followed a predictable sequence. She began to exploit that, sidestepping at precise moments and using her momentum to create small openings. The audience of students watched in awe. Many had expected Lena to be crushed within seconds. Instead, she was holding her own. She did not try to match Raxor in brute force. She used speed, timing, and clever movement. She tapped into every lesson she had learned in strategy classes, simulation exercises, and quiet observation. Minutes passed, and the intensity grew. Raxor's frustration was visible. His attacks became more erratic. Lena noticed his overextension and took advantage, using a move that pushed him just enough to lose balance without causing harm. He stumbled, and the crowd gasped. For the first time, many students began to see humans not as weak, but as resourceful and resilient. Just as Raxor regained his footing for another swing, one of the instructors intervened, rushing onto the mat. "Enough." "Step back," his voice echoed through the arena. Lena had anticipated this outcome. She had not been reckless. She had stayed within safe limits while demonstrating skill. Raxor, still glaring, had overstepped. The instructor's intervention came just in time to prevent real injury, but it could not erase the impression Lena had made. After the match, students gathered around her, some offering praise, some simply curious. Even Raxor's allies looked uneasy. Lena felt a mix of relief and satisfaction. She had survived, but more importantly, she had proven that humans could think and adapt under pressure, a lesson that would echo through the academy. In the following weeks, Lena continued to observe and learn. She noticed that many alien students underestimated humans, assuming that strength and natural ability were all that mattered. Lena used this bias to her advantage, quietly preparing for each challenge, noting patterns, and developing strategies that exploited assumptions. One evening, during a late-night training session, Lena practiced moves she had improvised based on her observations of Raxer. She imagined his attacks and tested ways to counter them. Her small frame allowed her to move in unexpected ways. Her reflexes had improved, and her confidence grew. Each night of practice reinforced a truth she had known all along. Humans had to rely on intelligence, adaptability, and courage. They could not match raw power, but they could outthink and outmaneuver it. Her reputation began to change. Some students who had once ignored her now asked for advice or assistance during exercises. Instructors quietly noted her progress, impressed by her resilience and cleverness. Raxer, meanwhile, became more cautious, realizing that Lena was no ordinary human to dismiss or bully. One afternoon, the Academy announced a special team challenge designed to test both combat skills and strategic thinking. Students were randomly assigned to mixed species teams. Lena's team included a large, armored alien, a nimble winged species, and a small telepathic student. Raxer, naturally, was assigned to another team. The challenge began on a simulated battlefield with shifting terrain and hazards. Lena immediately took the lead in planning their approach. She coordinated movements, assigned roles, and predicted potential threats. During the exercise, Raxer's team attempted to ambush them. Lena had anticipated this, creating a counter-strategy that not only avoided danger but also turned the ambush into an advantage. By the end of the challenge, Lena's team had successfully captured objectives while minimizing casualties and errors. The instructors praised her for leadership, creativity, and tactical intelligence. Even some of the students who had doubted her before now looked at humans differently. Lena felt a sense of pride, but she also understood that this was only the beginning. As she walked back to her dorm, Lena reflected on everything that had happened. Raxer's bullying had forced her to grow faster than she might have otherwise. The Academy's challenges had revealed strengths she did not know she possessed. Most importantly, she understood a core truth. Humans were underestimated because they relied on qualities that could not be measured by size, strength, or natural abilities alone. Courage, ingenuity, and persistence were the weapons that could level the playing field, even in a galaxy of beings far stronger than herself. Lena's thoughts returned to the future. She knew Raxer would continue to test her. Other challenges would arise, some more dangerous than anything she had faced so far. But she also knew she had something invaluable, the ability to think, adapt, and inspire others, qualities that no alien power could take away. That night, as she prepared for sleep, Lena looked out at the glowing Academy skyline. The stars beyond seemed endless, vast, and full of possibilities. She smiled faintly, thinking of the battles yet to come, the strategies she would devise, and the opportunities to prove that humans were not weak. They were formidable, clever, and unstoppable when determined. Tomorrow, the challenges would begin anew. Raxer would be there. Other students would watch. Instructors would observe. And Lena Hart, the human girl who had been underestimated, would face it all with unwavering courage and the mind of a strategist. Humans may not have the physical dominance of some alien species, she thought, but they had heart, intelligence, and an unbreakable will. That was enough to survive, thrive, and eventually shine in a galaxy that had not yet learned to respect them. Lena had settled into a rhythm at the Academy, but the tension with Raxer had grown. The alien had not forgotten the public embarrassment of the last challenge, and he was clearly planning his next move. Lena knew that strength alone would not defeat him. She needed strategy, observation, and creativity, the human way. The Academy announced a new training exercise, an interspecies tactical combat simulation. Students would be placed in teams and assigned objectives in a virtual battlefield that mimicked a real planetary environment. The terrain was uneven, with rocky cliffs, dense forests, and artificial rivers. Hazards could appear at any moment. Lena studied the briefing carefully. The instructors emphasized that this was not about brute strength, but coordination, problem-solving, and adaptability. Raxer was assigned to a nearby team, clearly looking to prove his dominance. He smirked at Lena when their paths crossed in the training hall. "Try not to embarrass yourself again," he said, his voice low but sharp. Lena did not respond verbally. Instead, she made mental notes of his posture, his tone, and the subtle movements that revealed his confidence bordering on overconfidence. Humans often survived by noticing what others overlooked. The exercise began. Lena's team moved through the rocky terrain cautiously. She directed her allies strategically. The four-armed alien would cover high ground, the winged species would scout, and the telepathic student would monitor enemy intent. Lena herself acted as a flexible point of support, ready to adapt to any sudden changes. Raxor's team moved aggressively, relying on force and intimidation. They expected Lena to panic under pressure, but she remained calm. Observing their movements, she identified patterns. Raxor attacked in predictable bursts, his allies followed him without questioning, and their coordination depended on overpowering smaller opponents. This was her advantage. When Raxor's team attempted a sudden flanking maneuver, Lena anticipated it. She repositioned her teammates subtly, creating a trap without alerting them. As the ambush unfolded, Raxor's team ran directly into it. The simulation detected the outcome instantly. Lena's team had gained the upper hand without a single direct confrontation. The other students and instructors observed silently, some clearly impressed by her foresight and planning. After the exercise, Raxor confronted her again, frustration evident in his movements. "Luck won't save you forever," he growled. Lena looked him in the eye and said firmly, "It's not luck. Humans plan, observe, and adapt. You'll see." His eyes narrowed, but he did not strike. He knew she was right, at least in part, and his pride refused to accept it. The days following the simulation were intense. Lena focused on improving her reflexes, studying alien fighting styles, and learning to combine speed with strategy. She experimented with improvisation, setting small traps in the training areas and noticing how students reacted to unexpected situations. Every encounter was a lesson, every observation a new tool. One afternoon, Lena received a personal challenge. Raxor had arranged for a private sparring session, intending to assert dominance away from prying eyes. Lena knew this could be dangerous, but she accepted. Avoiding public humiliation required courage, but she was determined not to back down. The arena was quiet, just the two of them and the instructors observing from a distance. Raxor charged immediately, his claws swinging with force. Lena dodged, rolling to the side and using her smaller frame to slip past his attacks. She observed his stance, the way he shifted weight, and the timing of his strikes. Each movement gave her insight into his approach. Rather than trying to match his strength, Lena focused on creating openings. She used quick feints, sudden changes in direction, and strategic retreats. Every time Raxor overextended, she countered with minimal effort, just enough to gain balance or position. The instructor nodded occasionally, clearly noting her control and precision. The sparring lasted longer than Lena expected. Raxor's frustration grew with each failed attempt to overpower her. He relied on strength, speed, and intimidation, but Lena's unpredictability kept him off balance. The crowd of students observing quietly realized something remarkable. The human girl could hold her own against one of the academy's strongest students without using brute force. By the end of the session, Raxor was exhausted, panting, and frustrated. Lena, though tired, remained composed. She had not won through sheer power, but through observation, planning, and human ingenuity. The instructors called the match, signaling the end. Both students stepped back, and the silence that followed was filled with unspoken acknowledgement. Lena had earned respect, not through domination, but through skill and intelligence. In the following week, the Academy introduced a more complex simulation, a cooperative mission requiring communication, strategy, and improvisation. Students were divided into teams, mixing species that rarely worked together. Lena's team included the same allies, and she immediately assumed a leadership role. The simulation involved retrieving sensitive data from a heavily guarded location while avoiding detection. Lena carefully studied the terrain, noting hiding spots, patrol paths, and possible hazards. Her team moved methodically, using each member's strengths effectively. When the simulation introduced unexpected obstacles, sudden environmental changes, surprise patrols, or malfunctioning equipment, Lena adapted quickly, keeping her team coordinated and focused. Raxor's team attempted to intercept them, expecting humans to panic under pressure. Lena's calm and strategic thinking allowed her team to outmaneuver them repeatedly. They captured the objective and returned safely, their success a testament to planning, teamwork, and adaptability. The instructors praised Lena for her foresight, problem-solving, and ability to coordinate effectively under stress. The events of the simulation had a ripple effect. Other students began to view humans differently, noticing that their strength lay not in raw power, but in intelligence, strategy, and resilience. Even Raxer's allies began to respect her abilities, though they refused to admit it openly. Lena continued to train late into the evenings. She reviewed combat scenarios, studied alien movement patterns, and experimented with improvisation. She noticed subtle details, like how certain species relied on repeated patterns or predictable reactions. By exploiting these tendencies, she developed strategies that allowed humans to compete in areas where physical dominance was assumed to be the key factor. One night, Lena practiced near the combat arena when she heard a commotion. Raxer and a few other students were sparring loudly. She observed quietly from a distance, noting their aggressive tactics and overconfidence. Suddenly, one of the students made a misstep, leaving themselves exposed. Lena realized that with minimal intervention, she could demonstrate how human ingenuity could turn the tide even in chaotic situations. She waited for the right moment. Using a small object as a makeshift tool, she distracted the group, causing confusion without harming anyone. Raxer stumbled, his attention divided. Lena had not engaged directly, yet she had subtly shifted the outcome. This was exactly what she had been training for, using brains, not brawn, to influence events. By the end of the week, Lena's reputation had solidified. She was no longer seen as the timid human girl. Students whispered about her cleverness, her adaptability, and her courage. Instructors quietly noted her progress, some even adjusting their expectations of human students. Lena felt a quiet pride, knowing she was carving a place for herself in a world that often underestimated her. Raxer, however, was far from finished. He approached her one afternoon, his expression a mixture of irritation and reluctant respect. "You're getting better," he said, voice low. "I didn't expect this. Don't think it makes you invincible." Lena looked at him steadily. "I don't need to be invincible. I need to be prepared. Humans survive by adapting, learning, and thinking ahead." He grunted, turning away, clearly unsettled. Lena knew their rivalry was far from over. The next challenge was announced, a team-based endurance and strategy trial spanning multiple days. Students would face environmental hazards, combat scenarios, and resource management challenges. Lena's team was again assigned together, and she immediately began planning. She studied maps, noted terrain features, and devised contingency plans for every possible scenario. Her human traits, observation, foresight, and adaptability were invaluable. During the trial, Lena's team encountered multiple unexpected obstacles. Aliens in her team struggled with coordination, while others relied on brute force. Lena's guidance kept them alive and progressing. When Raxer's team appeared in a surprise ambush, Lena had already anticipated their approach. Using terrain, timing, and clever maneuvers, she avoided direct confrontation while turning the enemy's aggression into disadvantage. By the conclusion of the trial, Lena's team had achieved their objectives with minimal errors. Instructors praised their strategy, coordination, and problem-solving. Lena herself had demonstrated that humans could excel not by overpowering others, but by outthinking them, predicting moves, and staying calm under pressure. As she rested that night, Lena reflected on how far she had come. The academy was challenging, the students formidable, and Raxer relentless. But she had discovered something essential. Humans had unique advantages that could not be ignored. Intelligence, creativity, observation, and resilience could overcome what seemed impossible. She felt a sense of confidence and determination growing within her, knowing that the challenges ahead were opportunities to continue proving herself. Tomorrow, she thought, would bring new tests. Raxer would surely escalate his efforts. The academy would continue to challenge her in every way possible. But Lena Hart, the human girl, had learned the power of adaptability, strategy, and courage, and she knew that she could face any obstacle with a mind prepared to think, act, and survive. The academy's morning air buzzed with anticipation. Today, a special exercise had been announced, the Interspecies Combat Tournament. It was one of the most prestigious tests in the academy, designed to evaluate students not just on physical strength, but on intelligence, adaptability, and teamwork. The arena had been specially prepared, with shifting terrain, simulated hazards, and unpredictable environmental changes. Lena Hart arrived early, her small frame carrying quiet confidence. She had trained long hours, studied patterns, and observed the other students closely. She knew that Raxer would be waiting. He had not forgiven the previous exercises, and his pride demanded victory. Lena did not fear him. She respected his strength, but knew that humans could compete in ways others did not expect. The first round began. Students were paired in mixed species teams, each assigned a set of objectives. Lena's team included her usual allies, the four-armed alien, the winged scout, and the telepathic student. Together, they had learned to coordinate effectively, each member contributing unique strengths. Lena's role was central. She was the strategist, observing the battlefield, predicting opponents, and guiding her team. Raxor's team approached with aggression. He moved first, his claws slicing through simulated obstacles, his allies following his lead. He expected Lena to panic under pressure, but she had anticipated his approach. Using the terrain and her team's abilities, Lena created opportunities for strategic advantage. The four-armed alien controlled high ground, the winged scout surveyed from above, and the telepathic student monitored enemy intent, relaying subtle cues to Lena. Raxor lunged toward Lena's position, swinging with force. Lena dodged with a fluid motion, using her smaller frame to slip past his reach. She directed her teammates to adjust positions, creating traps and misleading paths that guided the aggressors into disadvantageous zones. Raxor was strong, but his overconfidence and predictable patterns were now liabilities. As the round progressed, Lena demonstrated what humans did best: adaptability and ingenuity. When a sudden simulated landslide blocked their path, she quickly reassigned roles, redirecting her team through safer terrain. When unexpected patrols appeared, she orchestrated diversions and misdirection, minimizing risk while achieving objectives. Every move was calculated yet flexible, balancing immediate needs with long-term strategy. Raxor's frustration grew. He could not anticipate Lena's decisions. He attacked aggressively, attempting to overpower her team through sheer force. Lena countered by exploiting openings he left, avoiding direct confrontation, and using the environment to her advantage. Students in the stands began to murmur in admiration. The human girl, small and seemingly fragile, was dominating the match, not by strength, but by intelligence, observation, and creativity. The arena's hazards escalated. Sudden energy surges, shifting walls, and artificial fires challenged every team. Lena's team adapted quickly. While other students panicked or froze, Lena maintained focus, guiding her allies calmly and effectively. She anticipated patterns, predicted enemy maneuvers, and improvised solutions in real time. Her mind was a weapon as sharp as any physical strength in the arena. By the middle of the tournament, it became clear that Lena's team was outperforming expectations. Instructors whispered among themselves, impressed by her human ingenuity. Even some aliens began to murmur that humans were underestimated, their potential hidden behind small frames and unassuming appearances. Raxor, however, refused to yield. He became reckless, taking risks to try and regain control. Lena observed carefully. She knew he relied on predictable bursts of strength, often overextending his attacks. When he charged, Lena sidestepped, guiding his momentum into simulated hazards. He stumbled and the audience gasped. Lena's team moved decisively, achieving objectives while minimizing danger. The final round approached, a one-on-one match between Lena and Raxor. The arena had transformed into a dynamic battlefield with multiple levels, shifting platforms, and environmental hazards designed to test every aspect of combat skill and strategy. Students and instructors gathered to watch, eager to see if the human girl could truly hold her own against one of the Academy's strongest warriors. Raxor's eyes were fierce. "This ends today," he growled. Lena met his gaze steadily. "It ends when the smarter fighter wins," she replied calmly. The instructors gave the signal and the match began. Raxor lunged immediately, swinging with force. Lena dodged, rolling beneath his reach and using her smaller frame to move unpredictably. She observed every detail: the angle of his swing, the placement of his feet, the timing of his breathing. Each detail was a clue to his next move. Instead of striking with force, Lena used precision, timing, and clever positioning. She baited Raxor into overextending, then redirected his momentum, causing him to stumble into the arena's shifting platforms. The audience watched in amazement as Lena's strategy unfolded. She used the environment, her speed, and her mind to control the flow of the battle. Raxor attacked again, more aggressively, trying to overwhelm her with sheer strength. Lena remained calm. She noted his patterns, anticipating each move and exploiting every opening. When he attempted a leap from a higher platform, she sidestepped and guided him into a trap she had set earlier, a simulated energy field that temporarily immobilized him. He struggled, frustrated by the human girl's ingenuity. Lena's approach was not just defensive. She moved with purpose, setting up sequences that forced Raxer to react rather than act freely. Every decision was calculated, flexible, and precise. The crowd began to cheer, impressed by her mastery of tactics. Lena's human traits, adaptability, creativity, observation, and courage were shining brighter than any physical advantage. Raxer realized too late that his reliance on brute strength had become a weakness. Lena had turned the battlefield into her advantage, predicting every move, guiding every interaction, and controlling the pace of the match. With a final clever maneuver, she guided Raxer into a position where he could not attack without risking himself. The instructors declared her the victor. The audience erupted in applause. Lena stood, chest heaving, yet composed. She had not won by strength, but by intelligence, skill, and perseverance. Raxer, though frustrated, extended a hand in reluctant respect. "You fought well," he admitted quietly. Lena shook his hand firmly. "Humans survive by thinking, not by overpowering," she said. He nodded, acknowledging the truth. The victory changed everything. Students who had doubted her now saw humans differently. Instructors recognized that human traits, adaptability, ingenuity, and persistence could rival even the strongest alien abilities. Lena's victory was not just personal. It was a lesson for the entire academy. Underestimate humans at your own risk. After the tournament, Lena's team gathered to celebrate. They laughed, shared stories, and reflected on the challenges they had faced. Lena felt a deep sense of pride, but also humility. She knew this was only one step in her journey. The academy would continue to test her, and Raxer, though humbled, would continue to challenge her. But she also knew she had proven something essential. Humans could compete, adapt, and thrive even in environments dominated by beings stronger, faster, or naturally more powerful. That night, Lena stood on the academy balcony, looking out at the glowing campus below. She thought about the weeks that had passed, the bullying, the challenges, the simulations, and the victories. Each obstacle had been a lesson, each challenge an opportunity. Humans were underestimated not because they lacked skill, but because they relied on qualities others often ignored: intelligence, adaptability, courage, and perseverance. Lena smiled faintly. She had earned respect, but more importantly, she had earned confidence. The academy was still a place of danger and competition, but she was ready. She would continue to grow, continue to observe, and continue to prove that humans could thrive in any situation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new rivals, and new opportunities. But Lena Hart, the human girl who had once been underestimated, had shown the galaxy that humans were not weak. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of incredible feats when pushed to their limits. And she intended to continue proving it, one challenge at a time. The Academy's halls were alive with excitement. The final event of the Interspecies Combat Tournament was announced, the Ultimate Survival Challenge. It was a test like no other, designed to push students to their limits, physically, mentally, and strategically. The arena had been transformed into a massive simulation zone, replicating a hostile alien planet with jagged cliffs, dense forests, rivers, and sudden environmental hazards. Every team would face the same conditions, but the true challenge was how they adapted, cooperated, and survived. Lena Hart arrived at the starting point, her heart steady, her mind sharp. She had trained for weeks, facing Raxer's relentless bullying, enduring rigorous exercises, and mastering strategies that turned human limitations into advantages. She knew this challenge would test everything she had learned, but she also knew humans were clever, adaptable, and persistent. Her team assembled around her. The four-armed alien, sturdy and reliable, the winged scout, quick and observant, and the telepathic student, silent yet powerful in detecting others' intentions. Lena took a deep breath and laid out the plan. She divided responsibilities, assigned fallback positions, and discussed contingencies for hazards. Every member of her team nodded, trusting her guidance. The signal was given, and the simulation began. Students spread out across the terrain, navigating cliffs, crossing rivers, and avoiding hazards. Lena led her team methodically, observing every detail. She noted weak points in the terrain, monitored the movement of other teams, and adapted their plan as the situation evolved. Humans were often underestimated in environments where raw strength seemed to matter most, but Lena intended to use observation, strategy, and ingenuity to excel. Raxer's team moved aggressively, trying to assert dominance from the start. He charged forward, relying on brute strength and intimidation. Lena observed silently, noting predictable patterns in his attacks and the coordination, or lack thereof, among his allies. She didn't react impulsively. Instead, she waited for openings and used her team's strengths to create subtle advantages. The first obstacle appeared, a rapid-flowing river cutting across the terrain. Most teams rushed forward, trying to cross quickly, but Lena paused, assessing depth, current, and hidden dangers. She led her team along a safer route, using rocks and natural formations to navigate without risk. Raxer's team attempted a reckless crossing, and several of his members struggled, losing time and energy. Lena smiled faintly, knowing patience and careful observation were as valuable as strength. Next came a dense forest filled with unpredictable terrain and simulated predator drones. Lena instructed her team to move quietly, using stealth and coordination. She noticed small clues, broken branches, slight shifts in foliage, and faint noises indicating the approach of other teams or hazards. Humans excelled at noticing details others overlooked, and Lena used this to guide her team safely through the forest. Raxer, in contrast, charged forward, drawing attention and forcing his team into defensive maneuvers. As the simulation progressed, Lena faced several direct confrontations with other teams, including Raxer's. Each time she relied on strategy over strength, using traps, misdirection, and timing to gain the advantage. She never aimed to harm, only to outthink and outmaneuver. In every encounter, her human traits, adaptability, creativity, and observation, shone. Students who had once doubted her began to watch with admiration, recognizing that intelligence and planning could rival physical superiority. Midway through the challenge, the simulation introduced a sudden hazard, a massive rockslide from the cliffs above. Teams scrambled to safety. Lena acted quickly, directing her team to secure positions and protect weaker members. She anticipated the rockfall's path, guiding her team through a safe route while Raxer's aggressive approach left his team scrambling and disoriented. The advantage was clear. Lena's calm mind under pressure gave her team stability and control. By the evening, the teams faced their final objective, a heavily fortified area with multiple simulated defenses and traps. Lena observed the layout carefully, noting weak points and predicting Raxer's likely approach. She coordinated her team silently, moving like a single unit. Each step was planned yet adaptable, each decision informed by observation and anticipation. Raxer appeared at the entrance, his frustration evident. He had tried everything to anticipate Lena, but she always stayed one step ahead. "This ends now," he shouted, charging aggressively. Lena met him calmly. "It ends when the smarter team wins," she replied, voice steady. The confrontation was intense. Raxer's strength and aggression were formidable, but Lena had already designed traps and routes that gave her team control. She dodged his attacks, using his momentum to guide him away from key positions, while her team secured objectives. The telepathic student subtly manipulated enemy attention, the winged scout provided aerial guidance, and the four-armed alien blocked and redirected attacks. Lena's leadership made them more than just a team, they were a coordinated force. Every movement Lena made was deliberate. She avoided unnecessary risk, exploited openings, and stayed flexible. Raxer's frustration grew with each failed attempt to overpower her. He lunged, swung, and charged, but Lena's unpredictability kept him off balance. She had turned what seemed like a smaller, weaker presence into a strategic advantage, showing exactly what humans could achieve with intelligence and composure. As the match reached its climax, Lena anticipated Raxer's final aggressive maneuver. She guided him into a position where his strength became a liability, causing him to stumble and lose control briefly. Her team seized the opportunity, completing the final objective while maintaining cohesion and safety. The instructors signaled the end of the challenge. The arena erupted in applause. Lena's team had not only survived but had excelled, completing the course efficiently, safely, and strategically. The instructors praised her ingenuity, leadership, and adaptability. Students and allies alike recognized the lesson. Humans could not be underestimated. Strength alone was not enough. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability could turn the tide in even the most extreme circumstances. Raxer, though frustrated, approached Lena afterward. His usual arrogance was tempered by reluctant respect. "You've beaten me at every turn," he admitted quietly. "I underestimated humans," Lena nodded calmly. "Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and staying focused. Strength is important, but it's not everything." He grunted in acknowledgement, a silent truce forming between them. The victory had broader consequences. Other students, inspired by Lena's performance, began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Instructors noted her methods and emphasized the value of observation, strategy, and adaptability in future lessons. Lena's reputation transformed from underestimated human to respected strategist, leader, and competitor. That evening, Lena walked alone through the academy's quiet corridors. She reflected on the weeks of training, the bullying, the challenges, and the triumphs. Each obstacle had been a lesson, each conflict a chance to improve. She realized that humans had qualities others often overlooked: persistence, creativity, adaptability, and courage under pressure. These were weapons that no amount of raw strength could match. Lena paused at the balcony overlooking the glowing campus. The stars above stretched endlessly, full of potential and possibility. She thought about the challenges she had faced and the ones yet to come. Raxer would continue to challenge her in new ways, and the academy would keep testing her limits. But she also knew that she had proven something essential. Humans could thrive in environments dominated by beings who seemed stronger, faster, and more naturally gifted. Humans could think, adapt, and overcome. They could turn limitations into advantages and transform underestimation into opportunity. Lena had done this not through brute force, but through careful observation, ingenuity, and courage. She smiled faintly, feeling both pride and anticipation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new rivals, and new opportunities for growth. Lena Hart, the human girl once targeted and underestimated, had shown the academy and herself what humans were truly capable of. She had turned every obstacle into a lesson, every conflict into a stepping stone, and every disadvantage into an advantage. She returned to her dorm that night, exhausted but exhilarated. Her team gathered briefly, sharing quiet laughter and reflection. Lena felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had faced fear, bullying, and overwhelming odds, and had prevailed. She had not only survived, but had demonstrated that humans could compete at the highest levels, even in a galaxy full of beings far stronger than themselves. As she lay on her bunk, staring at the dim ceiling lights, Lena thought about the future. The academy would continue to challenge her, the galaxy would continue to test her, and Raxer's rivalry would evolve. But she felt ready. Humans were underestimated for a reason, but she now knew the truth. Humans were formidable, clever, and unstoppable when determined. And Lena Hart would continue to prove it, one challenge at a time.